Vice President Kamala Harris joined Charlamagne Tha God for a wide-ranging interview in Detroit, my hometown. Before they got into it, Charlamagne called her out for sounding so scripted. Let's watch.
One thing they've been saying, a lot of your press hits get criticized. Folks say you come off as very scripted. They say you like to stick to your talking points. And some media says you have...
That would be called disciplined.
Ooh, okay. Speak to that.
But go on.
Charlamagne also questioned why Harris hasn't pushed back on Trump's repeated labeling of her as border czar.
Why do you allow them to call you the border czar when that's not even that wasn't your role?
I'm not giving him permission for that.
Oh, you're right. But I mean, you don't push back on it because that wasn't your role.
Fact checkers have made that clear. Look, if I responded to every name he called me, I wouldn't be focused on the things that actually help the American people, and that's my focus.
That is true.
Harris then summed up her view of this election for the American people. Let's watch.
You have two choices, or you don't vote. But you have two choices if you do. And it's two very different visions for our nation. One mind that is about taking us forward and progress and investing in the American people, investing in their ambitions, dealing with their challenges. And the other, Donald Trump, is about taking us backward.
The other is about fascism. Why can't we just say it?
Yes, we can say that.
Yeah.
Now, recent polls have shown Harris losing support from black men. She addressed the possibility of reparations for slavery. Let's watch.
But black Americans are heavily asked to vote Democrat in every election for over half a century, with very little in return. What are your plans to address these very important issues and change that narrative?
Thank you, Zeke.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And thank you for your work. So, to your point, yes, I am running to be a president for all Americans. That being said, I do have clear eyes about the disparities that exist and the context in which they exist, meaning history, to your point. So my agenda, well, first of all, on the point of reparations, it has to be studied. There's no question about that. And I've been very clear about that position.
Well, I think Kamala Harris was right and smart to do this podcast appearance, to do many of the media appearances she's doing with less, I guess, necessarily friendly, although this was largely friendly in tone. It's reaching a different audience than just doing cable news interviews, so that's good. I'm not sure. She does come off as scripted. I don't think that's discipline. I think that's being scripted. Again, I have to quibble with even Charlamagne Tha God's framing on her being the border czar. That's how she was described in the media. It's not there was not a scepter, anointing her the border czar, but it's an informal term. She was responsible for addressing the root causes of problems at the border, that was announced by the administration. So it's a little bit of quibbling to say I'm not in charge of that. But what did you make of the appearance?
So I think, like you, that she was right to make the appearance. And it is troublesome from a Democratic perspective, from Harris's perspective, that there seems to have been this fall off to some degree in black support. We would still expect her, of course, to get a comfortable majority of black votes, but Democrats need very, very overwhelming numbers from the black community. Now, at times I thought that the issue of being disciplined, I personally tend to find her a little bit over-scripted, but I take her point as well. In a very high-stakes election where there is a very partisan media, as there has been in this country for several years, any kind of, not even slip-up, but anything that can be utilised against you will be used against you. So I understand the desire to be disciplined. On the question of reparations, which is maybe one of the most explosive questions that came up here, that's a tricky one. I see the moral case for reparations. I just don't think that it is politically viable at all. And I think the likelihood is that you turn off vast numbers of white voters if you propose it in a serious way. Now, what Harris was doing was doing that thing that I sometimes wonder is if it's a bit too clever by half, where she says, well, I'm studying it, suggesting she's open to reparations. I would be personally amazed if she were elected and actually put forth a reparations plan. So I worry if that in a way plays into this suggestion of kind of pandering or being a little bit too calculated in the positions that she puts forth.
Yeah, my problem with reparations, it's going back a long time. There has to be some kind of statute of limitations on addressing, look, if you can show, and also it should not be race-based, it should be lineage-based, because there are, black or minority people who've come to this country who did not descend from people who experienced slavery, who are themselves affluent. If it's just a general transfer of wealth, there are poor white people and poor Asian people and poor Indian people. And now, in narrow cases, if you are a descendant of slaves and you can say, well, my property was confiscated by, these people's ancestors within a reasonable number of generations, I would not have a problem with the criminal justice system addressing, if I stole from you and one generation on, you have some documentation, that could be addressed through the criminal justice system. I don't have any intellectual problem with that, but now we're going back hundreds of years, and then where does that end because we can all descend from some, it's not just, slavery was a very unique and American wrong. We do all descend from people who were wronged by other people, and it starts to get a little bit messy in my view. Maybe that's not a popular thing to say if we start looking that far back.
Yeah, look, I do think that there's an argument to be made that the systematic nature of slavery and the things that followed from slavery put a unique economic penalty upon the black community.
But what about the Irish, how they were treated by the British?
I don't think, look, if people want to hand me money, that's okay, but I don't think the Irish were treated as badly as black people were. And Irish people, Irish Americans who tend to be more conservative sometimes make that argument, and I don't really go for it. I think, it's interesting. I think that there's the academic or abstract argument about reparations, and then there's the chance, or in my view, lack of chance of it being enacted anytime soon as a political measure. I just think it's interesting, as Harris tries to, frankly, cater to black voters, how she's trying to do that. So we saw, for example, a couple of days ago, a rather peculiar insertion into a plan supposed to appeal to black men about protecting cryptocurrency, which seemed to portray that as helping the black community, which she appeared to do specifically, just seemed an odd thing to do. All of this, I guess, writ large, Robby, to me does point to an anxiety in the Harris campaign about the black vote and about what way that vote will go. We see, particularly among younger black men, sometimes Trump hitting 25% support or thereabouts in polls. We all know that polls can be wrong in all kinds of directions. But if that were replicated on November 5th, obviously Harris is in very deep trouble.
I, like you, similarly raised my eyebrows at the crypto part of the pitch to black men, which was so specific that I'm going to presume that I'm just not informed in this, and maybe there is some particular interest among black men in crypto. I am supportive of crypto and not over-regulating it, so I was happy to see that policy proposal. It's geared toward me. I'm obviously not a black man, but I was happy to see it discussed. Similarly, I was happy to hear decriminalization of marijuana discussed, which is not obviously. Black men do not use marijuana at a higher rate than white people, but they are disproportionately arrested for doing it, and I don't want any of that. I think it should be totally legal. So that's all good. Big thumbs up to those proposals. I think Republicans should adopt them too.
I'm glad to see that a combination of crypto and weed has Mr. Soave on the Kamala
that's
Harris
going for the
train.
libertarian vote. I don't know about the black male vote. It's definitely pursuing us libertarian folks, but. Coming up next, trust in the media is at a record low. We're going to debate whether that is perhaps justified or not. More Rising right after this.